beautiful things.
I know, right? Like, I just cut my head when I was shaving. 10 is a milestone number, so as Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk's acclaimed anthology series American Horror Story hits double digits with Double Feature, it seems like a good time to look back at how the 9 seasons leading to this point have shaped the series as we head into season 10 and see why you should be hyped for these frights. Now, Sarah Paulson had already carved out an incredible career full of smaller supporting roles, and while she was a recognizable face, it was her turn as medium Billie Dean Howard in the first season of American Horror Story that made her an icon. The role changed the trajectory of Paulson's career, and she's been synonymous with the series ever since, appearing in every season with the exception of season 9, 1984. After her time off, she's back this year as TB Karen. The latter half of Double Feature, Part 2 Death Valley, will focus on aliens, but it won't be the first season to feature horrors from another world. Asylum, way back in season 2, first featured extraterrestrial antagonists as Kit, played by Evan Peters, who's also returning after a season off, was framed for serial murders by a group of little green men, and his psychiatrist, who was the actual killer. The terrors of subsequent seasons have been a bit more of this earth, but we're set to return to a threat from the cosmos in Double Feature. Despite recurring roles in the first 2 seasons, it wasn't until season 3's Coven that Frances Conroy was promoted to main cast for her role as Myrtle Snow. She's been in all but 2 seasons since, even reprising Myrtle in season 1's Moira for Apocalypse. Now she's back for Double Feature as Belle Noire, whose crazy erotic sex scene with the character of Mickey is how Ryan Murphy got Macaulay Culkin to accept his role on the spot. Finn Wittrock first showed up in the world of American Horror Story in season 4's Freak Show as the epically named Dandy Mott, and he instantly became a fan favorite, despite portraying an inbred psychopath who murders his mother and then sews another victim's head onto her body. I mean, honestly, that should really just speak to Wittrock's likability as an actor. He appeared again in Hotel Roanoke in 1984 and returns as Harry Gardner in Double Feature. While season 2's Asylum brought us our first look at how American Horror Story would handle half of this season's horrors, it wasn't until season 5 checked us into the Hotel Cortez that we saw the show's take on vampires, with Lady Gaga's Countess being infected by an immortality-granting blood disease by Rudolph Valentino and Natasha Rambova. Ryan Murphy introduces a new take on vampires with The Pale People of Part 1, Red Tide, which is set in the seaside town of Provincetown, Massachusetts. The first half of season 6 Roanoke followed Shelby and Matt Miller, recounting their purchase of a home in North Carolina before being driven out because of a haunting of the property by the lost colony of Roanoke, whose disappearance was tied to a curse brought on them by one of their own. That first half was told through the lens of a docudrama series titled My Roanoke Nightmare. Then, things shifted to after the series had become a smash hit and the survivors were brought back to the property to film a sequel special. It did not go well. Now, Double Feature isn't hiding its pivot quite the same way, but we do know that the show will shift from its first 6 Part 1 Red Tide episodes to the latter 4 Part 2 Death Valley episodes. And knowing American Horror Story, we can expect that it might not be a clean break between the 2 storylines. Season 7, Cult, was the season we could argue shook off any allegory and took on themes with a much clearer approach. But it's also the season that brought previous Murphy collaborators Billy Lord and Leslie Gross the American Horror Story fold. They immediately became staples of the AHS world, returning for each subsequent season. They're both back for the Part 1 Red Tide storyline this season. Season 8, Apocalypse, successfully crossed over storylines, merging elements from Season 1 and Season 3. Now, we don't know how much the Red Tide and Death Valley stories of Season 10 will cross over, but we can assume from the simple fact that they're sharing a season that we'll see them overlap in some way. American Horror Story has always had incredible title sequences, equal parts mesmerizing and disturbing. According to Ryan Murphy, the title sequence for Season 9, 1984 was inspired by the work of Corey Vega, who posted his concept art as a fan and impressed Murphy enough that he was recruited to work with series veteran Kyle Cooper on the titles for 1984. With 2 storylines to follow throughout Season 10, are we set for 2 sequences, or one that will incorporate elements of both, as seen in the show's teaser for Double Feature? It's just another reason to tune in and watch the whole season. Returning cast favorites, a fresh take on new horrors only glanced upon in previous seasons, crazy erotic sex between Frances Conroy and Macaulay Culkin. Honestly, if you haven't already stopped watching this video to run to your television and camp out for tonight's premiere of American Horror Story Double Feature, I don't understand you and I have nothing else to say. Don't miss the premiere of American Horror Story Double Feature tonight at 10 p.m. on FX. Next day, FX on Hulu. Until next time, you can see everything Crypt TV has to offer all over the internet. And remember, keep the horror on the screen and off the street.
Subscribe for new scary videos and comment with your theories on the Crypt Monster universe. Remember, it's all connected.